I got some links down in the description for you guys. Grants Pass versus Johnson, right? Supreme Court has now ruled that cities can fine, jail, or just simply harass you for camping on public property. They have now passed this. This is making homeless, basically criminalizing homelessness. And this is really what it comes down to. Now, for months, years even, there has been constant talk and debate and attempt to try and deal with the homeless crisis that is happening. And you think about it, like how many millions of dollars, just like I think about just in my area, like in the Portland area, Portland, Oregon, and how much millions of dollars and all these like what seems to be feeble attempts at providing some sort of assistance to try and relieve the pressures within the homelessness, within the homeless community, and the problem only got worse, right? Like it's not getting any better, it's getting worse. You know, we do videos constantly talking about how it is that it's becoming ever increasingly more difficult to get into a house, even if you have a good job. Like, how are you supposed to be housed if you don't have any job, if you have no money? See, like, it's even harder than that. Like, if you are on the streets, it is almost impossible to get off the streets. Like, once you're there, it's almost a magnet. Like, you're not getting off again. That's it. Right. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't people who do find their way off the streets, who are able to get a job and eventually an apartment and become productive members to society, like, you know, what people would anticipate most humans doing, I guess, in America. Like, I mean, there's people who do that, but you think about it, once you have been on the streets for any kind of length of time, the mental deterioration, the drug abuse, the issues that you have won't even give you the mindset or capabilities or skills to even have a regular job, like even just a basic retail job or just a laboring job. It's not within the realms of possibilities. And so what do? There's going to be ever increasing amounts of homelessness. The separation between the rich and the poor is going to grow. And all the attempts of throwing millions of dollars at the problem to try and fix it, which there is no fixing a problem by curing symptoms, right? You'll never fix the problem that way. But all the millions of dollars has finally left them with no other choice. Get out. You know, here we tried providing you with tents and, you know, facilities and all kinds of stuff, and it was abused and trashed and wasted. And the problem has gotten worse. What else are we going to do? Get away. Go away. Right? That's what, you know, it's, can't be here. I don't know where you're going to go. Right? That's what the ultimate answer to it is. And understanding why it's taken place is probably more important than trying to deal with the problem in the sense of how do we deal with these symptoms? Well, it's better to understand why it's occurring. The separation between the rich and the poor occurs because of new money coming into the system. It doesn't have anything to do with nowadays as opposed to those days and the way that people thought and all the others. No, it doesn't matter. Even a good job sucks. Doesn't do it anymore. And it's obvious when you look at all the efforts that people go into to try and deal with the homeless issues that they are facing in their cities, only to just finally just give up and just say, just go away. Either you're going to get, you know, I mean, you think about it, to a homeless person, this law really doesn't mean anything to them. They're already doing, they're like, what are you going to do? Fine? It was like, okay, so you're going to fine me on top of a bunch of other fines that I probably already have. And then you're going to throw me in jail? Like, okay, great. Now what? You know, you're just going to fill up the jails with a bunch of homeless people for being homeless, camping out on the public property? Of course not. It's an idle threat. Like, you can't do it. Yeah. I mean, they might be able to do it to some, but there's no way they can deal with the problem that way. Like, that ain't going to work. It's just, you know, I mean, it might work for a minute, but it's going to make the problem worse. Right? And it's not making the problem worse. What it does is it masks over the problem for a while, right? You can say, oh, look, man, the harassing of these homeless people has now gotten them out of my view. See, it worked. But they didn't go away. They're just out of your view, right? See, this is really where this is why I got so upset when I started covering. I have issues with this particular topic in YouTube because seems to be the one topic that they will demonetize my videos over. Right? It's so funny. It's like I can talk about anything I want except for this subject, which is the funniest thing that I find. Like I just don't get it. Like I've even asked them manually, like why are you doing? And they're no response. Like so whatever, But months ago, right? Months ago they were trying to like, okay, gosh, we have this huge rising homeless problem, and they're all the drug use and crime, and all the stuff that they're doing. Oh man, it's so horrible. And so they start throwing money at it, and I was just like, whoa, wait a minute, what are you guys doing here? You can't be throwing money at it like this. This isn't going to work. This is a waste of money, right? You're tired of seeing it. This is what the problem is, and you're doing whatever you can because you have a bunch of money to throw at it to see if you can make it disappear. But you're not dealing with the real issue. Like, I don't even know how many tens of millions of dollars. It was even close to, I don't know, $60 million or something. I don't know, some godly number for tents and beds and just like all this stuff. And I'm like, this is all temporary stuff that's not going to work. Like, it's going to relieve the pressure for a minute. Some people might feel the effects of being like, oh gosh, thank you for getting me off the streets and giving me this particular facility to sleep tonight, or this tent or whatever it is. But then eventually that's gone away, right? Because the real problems underlying are still there, which is up in here, the mental issues that are happening, the drug abuse, right? The alcohol abuse. That's the real issues that are happening out there. So you can build as many little facilities with beds in them, and you can build or hand out as many tents and all the other stuff. It doesn't cure the problem. It literally masks it over for just a minute, right? And then the problem reappears, and it's now worse because it was underlying still growing, but you couldn't see it happening because you threw all this effort and money and time at something and it didn't work. And all of a sudden, boom, it's back, and you're like, wow, how is it here? And you're like, it's obvious. It didn't go away, right? It didn't go anywhere. You didn't do anything to stop it from happening more. And there's nothing you can really do to stop it, right? See, like if you think about it, like the things that we have learned from here on this channel, from the Cantillon effect, is that as that new money pours in and the separation between the rich and the poor continues to occur, what happens to the poor? They get depressed. What happens when you're depressed? You go into drug use, alcohol use, mental issue breakdowns, right? I mean, it's literally being poor is a deterioration on your mental health. Like, I know, right? I mean, I'm trying to deal with it myself from being broke and in debt and all this other stuff, like literally trying to get myself out of the scarcity mindset and into the abundance mindset, considering what it is that I have going on in my life. I tried so hard to get here, and I still have that mental block going on from all those years. I can recognize, I see it in those guys. Like, people want to blame me, like, go away, get out of here, go get a job, do all that other stuff. They have no clue. They have no clue, those people who say that. They have no idea how hard it is to get off the streets. Like, once you're there, you're there. This is it, man. This is your life. This is what you get to expect for the future. Anybody who thinks any differently is wrong, right? The problem goes worse because the ability to get off the streets is harder. And you can tell it's harder because think about it. A good job is that much harder to get into a house. So you're going to expect some dude who has a good job, who can't get into a house, who has to be renting an apartment. Now you're going to compete against that guy who has a good job and you're on the streets? Good luck. It ain't happening, right? You can just see it as it takes place. This is not the only way to reverse the problem is for literally everybody to, you can't fix the problem because like the idea of fixing the problem is so like far off from like human nature that it isn't going to take place. You would literally have to have a coordinated effort within every single person actively pursuing the idea of not moving into luxuries and moving into savings. And that is such a difficult thing because that means you are no longer going to enjoy luxuries or a higher standard of living. You're going to maintain your standard of living or actually lower it. And in that case, then you may be able to provide an environment, a, a work environment in which that a job can be provided for a homeless person to then use that job to get themselves off the street. And if they got the job, it's not good enough. They're competing against somebody who's already established. You can't, right? If there was a time, right? Yeah, I believe it. There was a time when it was possible. But now it is like a matter of life and death to be on the right side of the wedge, or at least moving towards the right side of the wedge, if not on it. Right? Because the longer as time goes on, the harder and harder it's going to be to try and move up into what is just now considered a standard of living that seems normal is going to be a better standard of living for than most people would ever have appreciated or known. Right? And be like, wow, you have a house, you must be filthy rich. That's literally what it's going to come down to. And you can see it, like, I mean, to think that there's going to be any kind of reversal to it is like, it isn't going to happen. And you can see this is like the efforts of it. And when they finally give up and criminalize it, and to say, hey, man, we have no other choice. We don't know what to do. We tried throwing money at it. We're doing everything we can. We just don't recognize and understand what the root cause of this problem really is. All right. And it's not just mental health. It's literally the condition of the economy and the separation of the rich and the poor from the Cantillon effect. But it's coming out right here, obvious, and nobody knows how to deal with it. And like to understand that this is going to get worse. That's the problem. Like I think most people don't realize is they're like, wow, this is really growing and it's growing kind of fast, and it's just like, yeah, can you imagine what it's going to look like here in a few years, like in 10 years from now, if this continues at the pace that it's going, right? It's going to be so ugly. This is not, this is like the weirdest times for most people to try and wrap their heads around, as it's like literally meets that tipping point where the capabilities of achievement in what we would have considered a normal life, that is like, it's beyond achievable. Like, some people will be able to get there, but for the most part, generally speaking, it's not going to be achievable for most people. And that's what's scary about it, is that this delusional idea is being pushed out there of like, yeah, if you work hard and save and do all this other stuff, you're going to be able to do it. You just have to go and get a good job and, be dedicated to that and all that. Yeah. I mean, the discipline that it takes in order to achieve that sort of level of accomplishment from a day job is like, you're talking no entertainment, definitely no drug use or alcohol use, right? The food is just to the minimum that you can consume, no luxury, fancy dinners or trips or anything like that. Yeah, you kind of take that kind of attitude where you are like, the only thing that you enjoy as far as your entertainment and daily experiences and stuff is free, like hikes and walks in the park and, hanging out with friends around campfires, stuff like that. Like if you live that kind of life and whatever, and you have that 9-to-5 job, then, you might be able to do it after a few decades of saving and trying and doing all that other stuff. You might be able to figure it out. But as far as like, if you screw up a little bit, if you have like, a party kind of phase going on where you're just going to kind of screw off through your early 20s or something like that, kiss it goodbye. Boom. That's it. You better have some really good career set in mind. You better have some family backing you, or you better like, work your damn hardest after that. Like focus in and just and all that party stuff, and then just like buckle down, because you're really taking your chances on whether or not you're gonna succeed. And I mean, just look around. It's like, it's not hard to see that the homeless community is growing. Like it's not shrinking. The capabilities of getting into a house. I was reading like, the average income now needs 35% down, not to achieve the loan. Like I need, like, they're asking for 35% down. You need to put 35% down in order to bring the principal down on the loan in order to achieve the payments, the monthly payments. Like the house is so expensive, the interest rates are so expensive that it takes ever increasing amounts of down payment just to bring the principal payment, or just to bring the principal down so that you can make the payments on it. Like this again is a separation between the rich and the poor. It's like even reversing it from here for a while still makes it incredibly difficult. Like you would have to it would have to be an utter crash of the system, which could happen. And in that case, like all bets be off, right? I mean, it's just like who knows what could happen from that kind of thing. But if this holds together, which I feel it will, all right, because really I just don't see any other option. And to think that they're out of game is not like, the more I look at how it is that this game is played, this monetary policy, and how it is that the Federal Reserve is conducting themselves. You think about it, like most people think it's the government that's doing it, that's conducting monetary policy. It's not. That's fiscal policy. That's something that's completely different from monetary policy. And then the monetary policy, which they think is government action, which it's not, or they're completely confused about that in general, right? And that the true monetary policy is a quite hidden, communicated through language that is very difficult to recognize or understand. Right? So they keep the monetary policy hidden. You think about how far away from it is that people really understand this stuff. And now I think about it, it's just like, man, with government acting as stupid as they do, no, and people think that that's where monetary policy comes from. It's no wonder why nobody gets it. Like nobody understands, or like, I mean, I understand that the people who follow it close, those who are on this channel, those who follow, the Fed speeches and, really tries to understand the strategies, stuff like that. I mean, I understand that we communicate, this strategy together on it, but most of the people out there that you, like your neighbors and stuff like that, are so far from understanding how this stuff works that that's the that's like the that's the use of the illusion, right? It's like they play with that game right there. It was just like, yeah, they think government does this, and then they think this is what it is, when it's not. It's like it's neither of those. It's monetary policy is not what most people it is, and it's not controlled by the government. And those are two things that most people believe has taken place. That it's controlled by the government and that they understand what it is, but they don't. Because even the mainstream media is pushing the propaganda of misinformation about what the monetary policy is. Just think about it. How many people are stuck on a 2% target? It just doesn't exist. I have proven it so many times through their own statements. Modestly or moderately above 2% for some time. We just did a video about it yesterday. So again, it's just like, what are these people going to do? It's just like understanding the system in the way that we do. We can at least attempt to position ourselves with our day jobs, with the things that we are doing, with our investments and placements and stuff like that, so that we can have at least some sort of attempt to try and get ourselves on the other side of the wedge. We're doing the side hustles. We're figuring it out, buying the rental properties, dividend paying stocks, trying to figure out some way to start a little business, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, we're going to try and figure out what it is to get on the other side of that wedge, but recognizing what it is that's taken place and how that the people, the governments, how they're all reacting in trying to deal with this issue, and not one single person really has communicated the true problem. And it's the new money coming into the system that's separating them. And they're like, man, these poor people, they should be doing something. They should try harder. They should do whatever. Oh, maybe they need a little help. Well, here's a bunch of money that we have that you don't. Oh, that didn't work either. I wonder why. It's because it's so difficult to try and operate in this environment. You can't do it. All right? I mean, if a good job can't buy a house, and a good job has to rent an apartment, and if a good job is renting an apartment, guess what? A bad job doesn't. Right? And that's just all it comes down to. And now the bad job or the shitty job has now got you living in your car, which is safer than being on the streets. Like, this is the condition. And it's sad. It's sad to think about, but it's also like you have to internalize this stuff for what the real problem is, right? Yeah, it's drug use, it's mental health issues, it was poor upbringing, it's, all kinds of stuff that goes with it. And guess what? That's going to grow worse as we go on. So it was just like, okay, we recognize the problem. Now what are you going to do? Well, I know. Let's buy some tents and put out some porta potties and pass out some food. That'll help, right? Alleviate the pressure a little bit. It might make them feel a little bit more comfortable about being on the streets. But is that really solving the problem of the separation of the rich and the poor with new money coming into the system from the Federal Reserve's expansion of money and credit? Oh, that's the real problem, right? Okay, well, and then we got all these symptoms we can go ahead and play with. Let's do that. Millions of dollars. Here you go. All right, millions of dollars screwing with symptoms. Man, I went off on this one. Okay, 20 minutes into it. We got 90 likes. Go hit that like button. I'll be out here for a little bit. It's 8:30 in the morning here on the West Coast. Family's just now getting up. So, all right. I see 9 likes. I see 92 likes. Or 9 likes to get to 100. That's it. I see. All right. The higher tax on business, the higher cost on the people. Yeah, I mean, it's just yeah, I mean, I guess, I mean, I think that's all, again, symptoms of the problem, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It's just like if you can understand, not saying anything about the taxes, that's definitely issues and stuff like that that the government interferes with, but understanding from the root cause. Like, I mean, why is it that back in the 50s you could have a regular job and produce enough money for an entire household? Wife, kids, car, vacation, retirement, college, all the stuff. How come? Right? That doesn't do it today. In fact, 2 incomes hardly does it. Like a 3 income hardly does it. Right? My wife and I have normal jobs, plus I have to have a side hustle that I work every single day. Right? And if without that, then it wouldn't happen. I literally wouldn't. I would be just the same as everybody else going, how the hell do I get into an apartment? Right? Because I was struggling with that very thing. And so, yeah, it takes like continuous, like there is not a day that I don't try to put in effort in order to try and acquire something like this. It's unreal, right? Like, and this is what kind of worries me about it. And like, I don't mean to go off on it, but I had to do this for the next 30 years and I'm 47 years old. So, I mean, I gotta work a day job and have this hustle for the next 30 years. Well, I'm 27 and a half now. All right. Now, I got plans that says, here in about 10 years, I probably won't be here. I'll be traveling around. Somebody will be renting this house. Things will be very different. But right now, I'm signed up for 27 and a half years of doing this every single day. All right. Going to my day job, doing this, calling the bingo, whatever it is that I need to do, because without one of them, it's going to start deteriorating. Yeah. Or at least start stagnating. It won't be moving. And that's where, like, how is it that, how does it that you compete against, somebody who's, trying to do something like that? Like, I'm putting in that kind of effort in order to just barely get it. Like, if I was to go for this house today, even with what I got going on today, I wouldn't get it. Like, I would not get this house today. That's just what's scary about it, is that even with the down payment that I had, I would not be able to make the payments at the interest rates that are today at what this house is selling for. Even at, well, yeah, probably even at the price that I paid for it. I don't know if I could do it at the interest rates. Like, I barely qualified for it at the time. And I got it at 3.125% interest. So, yeah, you see the wedge is being driven every single day. I mean, think about it. I was forced into this decision to buy this house. I really felt that way. I didn't want to. You guys could go back and watch that video. That was the wedge driving it in. They were like, you have no other choice but to pick one direction or the other. Bow. All right. And it was just like, all right, I guess I'm a property owner. And then properties start going up in price. And I'm like, oh, what's going on here? This isn't right. This isn't the way it was supposed to go. Interest rates go up, property prices go down. Everybody knows that. Interest rates went up, property prices went way up. Right? The inequality grows ever more. That wedge is getting, it was like, it literally was driven when I bought this house. I didn't make that choice. I had no other choice, right? I didn't. I was getting booted from my house. It was like, hey, man, I'm selling this house. You're going to have to find another place to go. And the guy was totally cool. The guy who was the landlord, super chill, super awesome. Dude gave me awesome rent on that house. Totally gave me a position in which that I was able to even save to get into another house. I do not have any ill feelings about the guy whatsoever, but he's like, dude, you got 90 days. You talk about it. This was at a time, this was in, what was it, late 2020. There's nothing. There was nothing to rent. Right? I offered a lady, she was just like, we just got this thing redone. It was hard to do. It was expensive as hell because there was nobody available to work on this place. The dog had completely, like the previous tenant's dog just totally trashed the place. And I'm like, I have a dog. And she was like, nope. And I'm like, I'll give you thousands of dollars of down, deposit. She was like, nope. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I had to buy the house. I was literally forced into it. The wedge was being driven, right? And it was the universe driving it. It wasn't even me. Like, I didn't even want to do it. I was just like, man, can I just stay in this house for another few months? No. Right? It's time, one way or the other. Which way are you going to go? I was just like, I guess I'm going to be a property owner. Right? And that's what ended up happening. And so you see it take place, right? I mean, I experienced it myself. You can see it happening around you. You can throw blame at liberal, politics or, whatever. I mean, that's fine. It's like, because there's a lot of blame to go around. And, I mean, a lot of it probably has a lot of logic and reason behind it all. And I'm sure that it makes sense to, the way that you're probably going to explain it. But the root problem is exactly the way I'm describing it, right? It's the Cantillon effect happening. Right? And it's obvious. I mean, if that dude can describe it in his essay from hundreds of years ago, like almost like, hey man, here's a playbook of how it's going to look, even going into the future, no matter what the technologies you have and advancements in social, whatever, like whatever the infrastructure of being able to try and provide like decent environment for people to then acquire a living from essentially nothing, right? Like to have that sort of economy, you have to be in a position in which you're an industrious an industrious nation that is rising, that gives the opportunity to get in there. Right? But if you're like, and you once you've already done that, it's over, right? And this is it. Like the new money pours into the system. You either provide for the rich, right, or you be rich. And providing for the rich essentially means you're a slave. And if you're a slave, it means that you don't get much, right? So generally speaking, you're not going to find an opportunity going into the future in which that those things are going to be there for you. I don't care who you vote for. It doesn't work like that because that's not the way the new money pours into the system and creates, equality again. It doesn't. It always, 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 and always creates inequality when the new money pours in. I don't care how you do it. Even if you inject it at the bottom, it still creates wealth for the top. All those people go out there and blast that money into stupid products, and it just creates more money in the stock market and the products that are being purchased, and the wealth goes right up to the top, and they separate themselves even more. See, if the new money came in and those people were industrious with it and invested, no luxuries, no enjoyment, none of that stuff. They took that and invested that money. Well, then maybe you might be able to shrink the inequality a little bit by doing that. But that's not what the people do. They go and get stoned. Like, that's what they do. Like, a smart one would be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to pay a little bit on my credit card. I'm going to put a little bit in the bank, and then I'm going to go get an ounce of weed, right? Or dab or whatever they smoke now. And that's really like, because that's just the truth of it. That's the way it goes down. It's not like, it's not it's not like people inherently already know how to deal with a new money coming in. Like inherently they don't. They just like, what do I do with it? I go and find fun. That's because that's what humans want, right? They want to enjoy themselves. And so if a bunch of money came in that they didn't even really work for, do you think they're honestly going to put that money to work? I mean, does that seem Like something, like I'm sure some people will. Like some people will be like, well, man, here's my chance, right on. And they might take advantage of it. It would be a really great opportunity, but that's not what they do, right? It's not what ends up happening. All right, I got a super chat. Let's go check that out. I'm sorry I'm dominating this and not reading any of the comments, but I don't know why it's just pouring out like this today. All right, Anthony, thank you so much for the $5. You're wrong. Okay, great. Home prices are dropping. No. All right. Average prices stay high because China is offloading investments in high value properties. Simpsons paradox. Okay. All right. Well, let's find out about that because I don't see anywhere remotely close to prices coming down in any kind of significant fashion anywhere. Right now, I do see some markets, some places where home prices have come down some, but generally speaking, across the nation, house prices have gone up. The housing market has slowed dramatically, meaning that there's less houses selling, less mortgages taking place, and, granted that there is conditions in which that you would see a collapsing housing market type event happening, right? Like all the banks are set up for it, the real estate, like the commercial real estate, that's all set up for it. All like everything is like in an appearance for like, this, right? It's all set there, right? Interest rates are high, right? Home, like all this stuff. It's still not happening, right? It should have happened already. Think about this one thing here, right? When the Federal Reserve late last year convinced people that they had to pivot and that they were in position to start cutting rates, stimulated the markets. That has worn off. We are now finding that stimulus that had come from that sparked people into mortgages, believing that they were going to be able to, lower their or refinance their loans going into the future and stuff. That has now faded, right? And so we're seeing the actual impacts onto the housing market, into the economy, as people are now realizing, crap, there's not going to be these interest rate cuts that stimulated the economy in the earlier part of the year. Right? So going forward, what's going to end up happening? People are going to start realizing this, and you're going to start feeling the impacts of that slowing market. And it's going to start being painful onto the economy. However, what happens if the Fed actually cuts rates? Right? How is the market going to perceive that? They are going to lose their mind. They have been itching, triggering, building up pressure, wanting, dreaming, hoping, and just demanding that there be an interest rate cut, but yet they still haven't participated in it yet. They can see the effects of it. They sampled it. They tested it late last year, recognized it inside of speeches that we, talked about inside of our member-only live streams. So people know that took place, right? They recognize that stimulated the economy. And if you think about all these people who are sitting on the sidelines just waiting, they're like, man, I want to buy a house. I am so ready. I got some down payment. I am just itching to do this, but I do not like the idea that they are not going to be lowering rates. And if they do lower rates, I'm in. Right? How many people are sitting there waiting for that position? You can tell that there's a bunch of them. They're like jumped out of the woodwork last year just believing the idea of it. All right? So what happens if they actually do it? And then it's going to actually come unglued. It'll actually happen. All right. JK, $5. Thank you so much for the super chat. And thank you, thank you, Anthony, for the $5 super chat in the question or in the statement. The U.S. median home price is at a new all-time high. Case-Shiller home price index in the next few years is going much higher. Yeah, and this is the thing. Like all I really have to look at is production, right? Just like anything else out there, you're gonna have like inventory levels. You're gonna have demand. You're gonna have supply. You're gonna have production supply. Like how many things are coming into new production. This is really where, like, if you recognize this as an operation as a whole, right? Like you have to look at it holistically, like every single little part of this. then it starts to playing out a much bigger picture, right? If you have a gap in production, you know that's going to create issues. Just know it. Like you may like it was like, wow, they're not cutting trees down. The mills are in curtailment. Okay, this is a gap in production. Like this is going to have a ripple effect throughout other industries. It's going to have a ripple effect within the futures market, may even have a ripple effect into the interest rates, like who knows what can happen just from this mill curtailment, but this is a symptom of another sign, right? This isn't the problem. This is another symptom. Right? Well, why are the mills in curtailment? Because there's not much demand. Why isn't there much demand? Well, it's because there's not much coming from the home builders. Why aren't the home builders building? Well, because the buyer traffic isn't there. Why isn't the buyer traffic there? Because interest rates are elevated and they're nervous about that. So the buyer traffic is nervous, which makes the home builder nervous about building a home today and believing that he'll have a customer at the end of the building of that home in order to sell it to. So they back off on the idea of building homes, which then now causes the lumber prices to have low demand, which then has the future prices start to come down, which then has the mills going, well, we're not going to produce if we're not going to be able to sell it at the price that is going to meet the production cost. So we're going to slow down on our stuff too. You see how it's just like, okay, this, how is it like, that's not hard to see, right? But it is hard to piece it all together if you don't know all the parts and pieces to it. All right, Infamous NYC, thank you so much for the $20. We see lots of virtues signaling today for the poor. Ironically, Judas, who betrayed Jesus for silver, was upset over expensive oil being poured out on Jesus' head and said, "Why this waste?" Jesus said, "You will always have the poor." Thank you. Wow, thank you again for the other $20, man. This is crazy. Now Judas, I mean, I really appreciate it, man. Not crazy. You're awesome, man. You're totally sane. Thank you. Thank you for being here all these years too, man. Now Judas was in charge of the money. Do I have my glasses in here? No, those would suck. All right. He was in charge of the money, so he wasn't worried about the poor, but was a thief and stole from the money purse. Likewise, today, many who call for aid to the poor do it in anticipation of enriching themselves. Yeah. And this is, wow, thank you so much for the super chats, guys. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, and I mean, you think about this. This is like, I mean, if you can go back all the way into biblical times and find evidence of there always being poor, like there's never been a time in which that there wasn't going to be homeless people, right? Like if you can name a time in which that didn't occur, I mean, that was some magical moment in history or something. So there's always this situation. Now, the only time that you have a relief on this is when the people themselves are rising as an industrious nation. This has given them the opportunity then to provide for themselves. And anytime you have somebody who is providing for themselves, their mental health is so much better than if they have no way of providing for themselves and they're stuck in a hopeless life or whatever. This is the type of environment that would then create that, that less of a homeless issue, right? Is to be a rising industrious nation. We're just not there. We're not going to go back to it either, right? And so it's just better to understand it in this fashion. Because to have this idea, it was just like, oh no, we can help. Look at what $60 million didn't do. It's just like, I was so angry at this and I'm like, you can do so much more with that money. Like it would be better to take that money, invest it, and then come back in like 20 years and use the money that you have invested in that to take care of the homeless, right? Like, I mean, that would sorry guys, you're all on your own for a while because we're going to do something here for the future of homeless, but you guys are screwed. I mean, that's because it's all wasted. It's all gone now, right? All that money is gone. It didn't do anything and now it's worse. So it was just like, yeah, a big waste of money, I mean, it might have like alleviated some pain for a minute, but that's it. Let's cruise on here. Yeah, we need to vote out all the Congress people. It seems pretty clear to me. Well, I don't know. If you think that would help, see, this is the problem that I find with it is that even voting all these people out, who are you going to vote in that's going to make a difference? You think that there's somebody out there who can actually do that? I mean, here's the thing. If you want somebody who's going to come in and fix the system to bring it back to a condition in which that we were experiencing back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, then why don't you just vote communist? Because what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to tell people, no, I'm sorry, you cannot go diving into luxuries. That means that all your efforts in creating business and all that stuff is going to be limited, right? Because we cannot have you expanding your efforts into mass luxury. So we're going to limit you on what it is that you're going to do. In fact, we're going to do that on everything because we can't just stop you from doing it. We have to stop everybody from doing it. And then if we can put this pressure on everybody, take control of it all, and all industries become part of the government, then we can actually push everybody and suppress them down on their standard of living to create an environment in which that we can relinquish this again, and everybody can go back into the free market trade and start becoming producers and savers again. But do you like? I mean, it's now clear to me why it is that communistic, socialistic governments now rise during these times. People are literally demanding that they do it to them. Right? I want to have an existence in which that I had before, where my day job would provide me with the standard of living. Oh, okay. Well, let's see. What's the problem? Everybody dove into luxuries and separated themselves from the rich and the poor. Okay. Well, let's create an environment that doesn't do that. That's very communistic, socialistic, tyrannical environment. That fixes the system. It doesn't. Right? That's why I'm saying there's no fixing the system. Like, I don't want that. I'm certainly not for that one. That's why I'm saying, okay, well, I better get on the other side of the wedge because I certainly don't want a communistic, tyrannical government that would create an environment that says, hey, these people aren't diving into luxuries, those greedy bastards. They don't produce greed. We take the greed, we use it to help out the rest of the people out there. But the one thing that we have to make sure of is that you don't move into luxuries. Because moving into luxury separates the rich from the poor, and that's what you're exactly asking to not happen. So what do? Right? That's why I'm saying it was just like, I'm not voting for anybody different than doing what they're doing. I'm not voting for these people. Like, I don't vote for these people. Right? I write in a vote. I write in Ron Paul for years as president because I vote for who I want, not for who I think should win. Right? This is like, I think this guy should win over that guy. No, screw both of them. I don't want them. I vote for the person I want. I knew Ron Paul wasn't going to win. I didn't think he was going to win. Right? I don't vote for who I think is going to win. I vote for who I want. Right? Period. That's it. You know? And some people might say it's a wasted vote. I agree. My votes are wasted in Oregon. They don't mean anything. Like, we have 3 electoral votes that are mail-in ballots. By the time our mail-in ballots get counted, the president has already accepted the presidency, right? We don't matter in Oregon. And I know a lot of people might disagree with that. I don't care. It's the way I feel. It's the way I literally feel about it. So my handwritten Ron Paul meaningless vote goes into the rest of the meaningless votes that get 3 electoral votes that get counted late anyway. So, all right, sorry to go off, guys. All right, man, infamous NYC is hitting me up today. Just look at California, who spent $24 billion on taxpayer money on the poor, only to have more poor people. And when asked where did the money go, it falls on deaf ears because it's enriched the wealthy. Yeah, it's like I really agree on all that, but I also have to take into consideration that is it like is it necessarily like making wealthy people more wealthy by this effort? I mean, yeah, I guess there's probably a lot of people who can position themselves in order to get that flow of cash to move towards them. Because you think about it, 60, like I'm just thinking of my own local area. You got $60 million flying around. You think somebody's going to be like, oink, 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 taking some of that for themselves. Of course they are. Like, this is like, it would be dumb to think that they're not, right? And I don't mean to laugh at that, but that's literally the case, right? It was just like, that much money's flying around. Some of it's corrupted. It's going to get corrupted and taken for themselves. It's the effort that they're going through that is like, we got to do something, but they don't know what to do. And that's the problem. Is it's like if somebody was discussing the problems in the way that I have, like the way that I have figured out and broke it down. And I'm not trying to say that I'm the smartest dude in the world, but I have excuses beyond just the problems of like politics, because I know there's nobody out there that you can vote for that's going to fix the situation, because the situation is dating back literally 100 years and more, and 1,000 years if you want to go back and just kind of talk about how it really went down. So this chain of events that has taken place does not lead to a position in which that you can go back to some like golden era. Right? It doesn't, it's not happening, right? So it's better to understand like what's going to take place as the new money continues to pour in until the day that it doesn't, right? And as that new money continues to pour in, more separation. And it's best to just get it that way to know it. Because a lot of times people like even taking on the idea that we can vote for somebody that's going to do something different. They might be able to take like this inequality and go like, right? It's not going to do much. They might keep it from happening anymore, like stall it out for a little bit, but that's it. There's no real way of like, okay, so let's take on another theory for just a second on how we could totally help these homeless people out. Let's go into the UBI theory. Here we go. Let's do UBI. Universal basic income, but it's not. It's just welfare, because we're not going to give it to everybody. We're just going to give it to homeless people. Now, homeless people all of a sudden have the same income like say they make, we're not going to do it to the same, but like 3/4, 2/3 of a good job's pay is now a UBI recipient in the homeless community, because they don't have a job, they don't have anything. They get this 2/3 of what a good job would pay. Now, this 2/3 of what a good job would pay is just enough to get into an apartment, right? It's just barely there. You know, it's just like it might cover enough for the food and the needs in there, but it is like scratching it, right? Barely there at all. So now this is what's going to end up happening from that, because there is a limited supply on dwellings to be at, is that the dwellings themselves will then skyrocket in price. Right? Because now more people have the ability to get into it. And it doesn't create more dwellings, right? Now, over time, as the prices elevate and the known demand has the capabilities of paying, you're going to find that there is going to be a huge increase in production of places to live, which take time, right? Now, this is the situation in which that everybody would dream would happen, right? This is like, okay, so it's going to take place. The prices go way up. It takes time. All the dwellings come in and everybody will be living in a house soon, even though, and it's going to be this huge like increase in production of homes, which is going to be like, you know, a real boon for the economy and all this other stuff. Like this really joyful experience is going to take place from this UBI injection of money into the homeless community, right? Like, does this sound like it would actually, like, I mean, I understand, like, you can lay this out in a timeline that seems like it would take place. Does that sound right though? Right? Like here, I'm going to throw a bunch of money at the homeless community, and this is how that money would funnel. Right? Is that people would take apartments, and because they're taking these apartments, the prices of the apartments would go way up. And if the apartments go way up in price, then people would be able to build more apartments because they could achieve it with the profits that come in from it, from this UBI injection coming at the bottom into the homeless community, going like, you see like the mental gymnastics that it's going to take in order to achieve this thing. And my thoughts are, the moment that you give the UBI to the homeless people and the price of the rent goes way up, the homeless person still can't get into it because a good job is now going to be exceeding their capabilities of being able to get into apartments. So they're still stuck on the street drinking and doing drugs. Now they have all the ability to drink and do drugs, and even more separation between the rich and the poor because the apartments are now too much expensive. Right? It's just like, there's no fixing it. That's the problem, right? And once people recognize that there is no fixing it, it's better to just deal with it in a sense that I know why it's taking place. And I'm not going to blame it on anybody. Because if I blame it on somebody, then I'd have to find somebody who's going to fix the situation. And by fixing the situation, it's going to take a communistic rule. It's going to take like a, you know, some weird form of a MMT type of economy, and just like, you know, relinquishing of all your freedoms in order to achieve some sort of balance between the rich and the poor. And it's just like, none of that's going to work. Like, I mean, it might create the appearance of like, hey, look at this. This is like, look at what happened before, and this is what's occurring now. But it's just, it's this going to be a blip in time, and then the underlying economic forces that are at hand that are really driving the wedge are going to continue. It's just the unfortunate consequences of how economics work. And it's better to understand it in that fashion than to say, hey, these people have guided this into this thing and now have you in a slave position or whatever. It's just like, we've always been slaves. We just didn't know it. There was a time in which that we were really like successful slaves, where we had a nice standard of living, that we could go to work and actually have the appearance of freedom and all this other stuff, but we were still slaves. Now we're like really hardworking slaves, and pretty soon we're going to be obvious slaves. If like, for most people who really get it, they know already that we're debt slaves, that we're slaves to the system. I mean, most people already recognize it as that. But soon it is just going to be like, just like, yeah, that's just the way it is. Everybody knows it. Man, I have gone off on this one. Thank you so much for being here. We got 503 people watching with 236 likes and $70 in super chats. My gosh, thank you so much. Anthony has a $10 super chat here. Thank you so much, Anthony. All right. Decline of middle class stems from government using dollars to fund advanced and graduate education of foreigners to the exclusion of U.S. citizens. It's the most unknown issue destabilizing our economy. Okay, Anthony, I don't disagree. But what the issue that I am finding, and I think that what you are describing, is a symptom. Okay? I think that's a symptom of the problem. See, if Cantillon can describe how the separation happens from hundreds of years ago, then there's no point in reinventing the wheel and blaming it on something else. Now, you can say, hey, this has enhanced it dramatically. Like, I can agree with something like that. But as far as being the underlying issue that's causing it, no, I don't. I don't have any belief that it has anything to do with politics whatsoever. I believe that it has the way with the new money coming into the system and the way that people dive into luxuries because of that way that new money comes into the system. That is everything. The move into luxuries, the driving out of domestic manufacturing and the importing of foreign production. Right? It was described so many times, evidence of it hundreds of times, thousands of times throughout history. And to think that it didn't occur here in the United States is wrong. Right? It occurred right here in the United States, and it will occur again at some point in some future at some other nation. Right? And this is a constant thing that is going. It's cyclical, and there's no way that we can stop it from taking place. Now, the ability to create an environment in which that says, hey, we should have redistributed all the wealth and gold back in the 70s, but instead we went into this debt-based currency, and we're going to stretch that out as long as we can go and see how long people will accept the U.S. treasuries until that finally pops. And then, what do we have? Digital currencies. Wow, man. Well, let's try this some more. Maybe we can expand it even further, right? Before we have to redistribute the wealth and everybody falls into poverty and misery. Like, that's the way I see it. You can blame it on politics. There's so much blame to go around. Like, dude, point it out, man. You can pinpoint down to everything and probably come up with like an 8-hour lecture on how this was the reason that it is occurring. But then if you don't understand that it was an economic force that is underlying the entire event, right, then you're just talking about symptoms. That's all. It's like going to a doctor and talking about headaches, and he was like, well, maybe we can give you aspirin. Well, maybe we can, get you a massage therapist. Maybe we can take you for a walk on the beach, and get you some less stress. It was just like, well, maybe we could figure out why the hell I have a headache to begin with. Do you think maybe it's a tumor that we should deal with or something? Like, you give all these suggestions on what we could do about my headache, but maybe we should figure out why the hell I have a headache. Like that. This is the you see what I'm saying? It's like, like, well, I went and took an aspirin and I felt better, so maybe it's just we need to take aspirin all the time and that'll solve the problem, right? All right. let's see here. Cruise down to the bottom. 500 people watching. Thank you so much for being part of this. There we go. Where is that super chat? There it is. Hey, JK, thank you so much for the $5 again. I think we are creating another housing shortage now due to high interest rates. 2026 and 2027 will be fantastic for property owners. I don't disagree, and this is the reason why, is this exactly is the gap in production. There is not a lot of new homes being started, and you can see that within the futures market on lumber, right? Just like you think about it, right now is summer. Right now, there should be more demand for lumber than just about any other months in the year, right? Summertime, just even people just building their own, backyard projects, repairing the fence, rebuilding the deck, building a little woodshed, chicken coop, whatever, right? Right now is summertime outdoor fun projects. You would go down to the lumberyard, you buy lumber. People aren't doing that, right? And you can see it within the futures market trading at under 500 per thousand. They're at like 480 or something, right? This is not a profitable position for the mills. And now I look everywhere on the internet for publications, links, articles, or something talking about the mill curtailments. I cannot find them. There's a few, right? But there's ones that I've already talked about. Right now, mill curtailment is running rampant through the industry all across America. Right now, all these mills are slowing their production, pulling production off the line. Right? Trying to tighten up inventory because at under 500 per thousand, they're not profitable. So why produce? The moment that switches and the demand picks up and people are like, hey man, I want to buy into the market, there's not a lot of inventory out there. So the futures all of a sudden start running up because the builders are getting excited, right? What do we find happen? Well, we could find lumber prices skyrocket again. What happens to the cost of producing a house? Goes way up. What happens to all the existing houses that go out there? It's happening, right? It's best to understand the bullwhip effect. If you understand the bullwhip effect, then you can see it. You can see it plainly, right? The demand for lumber is down. Production is going to go down. If the demand for lumber goes up, there's not enough production. Prices go way up, right? And then what happens when prices go way up? Overproduction begins to take place. What happens to prices? Boom, they crash. How long does this event take place? Years. Lumber happens fast. You think about it, lumber is very quick to this bullwhip effect. I mean, there's other industries that are probably faster, but there's probably not as many industries that are going to be as fast and noticeable to the bullwhip effect as lumber is. And it's obvious. Like, well, for me, it's obvious because I'm in the industry. So I guess to me, it's obvious. To other people, it may not be. But to me, it's obvious. It's almost 100% of domestic supply. 80% of it comes out of Canada. Or I'm sorry, 20% comes out of Canada. But 80% of lumber, softwood lumber that is produced or used for the production of homes is produced here in the United States. So when it comes time to ramping up production, it is like we have a well-established, functioning forest industry, timber industry, established supply chains, mill operations, right? So when it comes time to firing up production, yeah, when the prices go up, it doesn't take very long for that production to be filling up the inventory, and you see the prices come back down. This is one of the reasons why you saw lumber prices move as dramatically as we did. 400 to 1700, down to 400, up to 1200, down to 400, up to 6, 7, whatever it was, 6, 700, back down to 400. I mean, this is like boom, 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 until it finds its equilibrium. All right. And when I think that equilibrium is found, when I have a consistent demand coming from the builders, not like what we have right now, which is all this screwed up demand. Nobody knows exactly where it is that the builders should be. All right, should they take advantage of the high housing prices, or are they nervous about the buyers not being there? Which one is it, right? So once this all pans out and finds its levels, we're going to find that there is not enough, homes being built at this time. And if the demand for homes starts to pick up, right, there's not enough lumber in the industry to provide for the building of a cheap home. So to me, like, I don't see it any other way. Like, I don't, like, There was a time, and I was just like, man, the housing should crash from this. And I was like, damn, moratoriums? Okay, well, after the moratoriums are lifted, we're going to find that there's going to be a huge housing market crash. And I was just like, oh, damn, the prices went up. Everybody who didn't make payments could just sell their home and even create a profit. Dang it, man. There was no place in there that what I saw, like the housing market crash should have taken place, didn't take place because of all these other efforts that were going into the market that started driving the value of it up. Like if the price goes up, then you're safe. Like even if you didn't make your payments, you sell the house off for a profit, make your past payments, fines, whatever it is that you got going on, and you take a little bit of profit for yourself. Right? And so in an upward increasing housing market price environment, there's like, it's just, and especially one that says, hey, we didn't have to make payments for it. It was just like, man, it was like a no-lose situation. All right, cruising on. Starting to get a little warm in here. Man, you guys are really hitting the comment section. There we go. We got Rolly Blue, $14.99 Australia, $14.99 Australia. Cool. 13 rate rises in 1 year. 13 rate rises in 1 year. Is that when did that happen? 1 year, houses and rent prices way up. Rich, greedy investors and developers buying up properties and holding back the bills. Okay. So again, like, okay, so let's just take it on for that kind of scenario. Like these are rich, greedy bastards. Let me ask you, if you were somebody who is into investing into properties, should you stop? I mean, should you stop investing into properties? Think about it. If there was no investment into properties taking place, then nobody would want to be buying into new builds. So what happens if nobody's going into new builds because nobody's investing into new properties? Right? That means existing properties start to go up in price because new builds aren't taking place, because we don't have investors going into new properties. You see, like, you can't stop this from taking place. This is a situation in which that you are in, is that you missed the timing, right? What you're asking for is a timing of a long ago. You want a condition in which that you can experience a day job providing for you. It doesn't exist anymore, right? And it's not rich, greedy bastards, it's Cantillon effect. The rich, greedy bastards who happen to position themselves or be in a family that had positioned themselves is quite unfortunate for you, right? I mean, I don't mean to give you a hard time or anything like that, because I really appreciate everything that, like as far as like even sending the super chat and being all that, but it's just better to understand it that it's not like anybody's fault or reasonings that can be changed, right? It's more of reasonings to be understood so that you can position yourself better for it. Right? Yeah, okay, so they are rich, greedy. If I was in the same position, I would be doing it too. Like, I don't blame them. Like, here's another thing. People were like, oh, the immigrants or whatever. And I'm like, if I was a poor-ass Mexican in Mexico, I'd be here. I mean, I don't blame them one little bit for wanting to come to the United States. I don't want to be anywhere else. I want to be right here in the United States. And if I was anywhere else, I'd be doing my best to get here. Like, I mean, some people don't want this. Like, they want to get out of the United States. They they abandon and give up their citizenship, all kinds of stuff. Not me. I like being here. Right? I like having the access to a higher standard of living that is unreasonable considering what most people have to go through in order to have a life. Right? Like, I appreciate being here. The only problem with it is that the unfortunate consequences that come from it are so vast and extreme that the pain that is felt from other people out there now have them blaming, the situation on other people. It's just like, man, it's more about the condition, the environment that we are in, the timeline that we are on. Right? We missed the mark. We missed the time that, that our normal standard everyday job of working down at the lumber yard and drinking beer and watching games after the work is, and having a really good life is over. Like, it's not happening anymore. And it's just better to recognize it. Yeah, they're greedy. So what? Yeah, they're just as greedy as I would be if I was in their position. Okay, so now that I understand it, what do I do? And that's where I think, like, and it's not like all hope is lost, right? You just have to understand that it's not going to work in the fashion in which that you thought it was. Now you have to house hack. You have to figure out how to get into that property and sleep in an RV in the back, or, live in a basement apartment while you rent out the rest of the house to somebody else. This is like, you can get into property being poor. This is what's awesome about the United States and being an American and being an American and American, right? Is that your opportunity to do this is wide open, right? But you have to have a strategy to do it. You have to know what's going on, and you can't throw blame at politics and saying, "Hey, you have to do something about the condition that we are in so that I can get a house." It ain't gonna work like that. They'll be like, "Oh, hey, I promise you, just vote for me, man. I'll get you that. I'll get it. Yeah, yeah, just vote for me, man. I'll totally take care of you." You know. Space Monkey John Prine inspired. I have learned debt is not good. No, debt is good. That's the problem with it is that debt is good. You just have to know how to make it good debt, right? Use that debt to buy an asset that has a cash flow to it. That's how the people have separated themselves so dramatically much from us. See, that's the wrong. That's not. Debt is good, right? Debt is good for you if you know how to use it. Debt is bad if you use it for your luxuries and pleasures. Right? So, I mean, this is like literally all of them. I don't care. Every single person that I know who has made it filthy rich, right? All the guys at the Rebel Capitalists and all this other stuff. Like, I'm up there on stage with all these guys who have, like, billions of dollars between them or whatever. I don't even know how godly amount of money. I'm the only guy up there who has no money, right? Up there on stage talking all this stuff with them. Every single one of those guys, just about, I shouldn't say every one of them, the majority of every one of those guys up there all did it in real estate. They all say the same thing. Anybody can do this. You just have to figure it out, right? And there is strategies and techniques that are going to be unique to you, your environment, your placement, your styles, everything that will then give you the ability to do this, right? I mean, think about it. I'm some dude who barely graduated high school with a day job. I figured it out on YouTube, right? But I could have done it with a second job. If I had worked two full-time jobs, it would have been essentially the same thing. I worked YouTube as if it was a full-time job. It pays me eventually at some times, especially when the lumber prices were running up, as if I had a second job. Right? And with that, I was able to get into a house. That's the type of level of effort that it takes. It takes 16 hours a day worth of work every single day for 5 years. Right? Literally, if not more. Like, I mean, I was dreaming about this stuff, like, monetary policies and stuff like that. So I'm working in my sleep. Get up first thing in the morning, start working on it. Go to work, do the day job, go and do the side hustles, go and work some more on YouTube. Nonstop, every single day, stressing the hell out of myself in order to get there. But what are you going to do? People are like, oh, you shouldn't have to go through that in order to get a house. Well, yeah, I guess you shouldn't, but you're going to have to. Like, I mean, whether or not you should or shouldn't doesn't mean anything if you have to. Right? Like, yeah, it really shouldn't be that way. But it is. Yeah. You got to run to make it an asset. Thank you, bro. Yeah. I have 12,000 subs, almost 13, all without talking. Right on. See, now that's like, my wife has 500 some subscribers. She's never said a word on her channel, And it's not necessarily like having a YouTube channel. It's about it's like understanding what it is that the universe does for people who provide something that is useful and beneficial to the world, right? And you can't help it. It's just like, if you are being useful, informative, helpful, being passionate about what it is that, it is that you are interested in and doing, when you pursue this, then just give it away. Like, you're just like, here, man, let me show you how this is done. Let me just do it, right? And you go out there and you just have this energy that you just go and just like, hey, man, this is my passion. This is what I do. This is how I help. This is like, my effort to the world. Right? It's literally like you have no other choice. And it takes time. And this is the problem that most people end up facing, is that it literally takes sometimes years for it to start flowing back. But when it does, it comes back in an extreme way. But it takes time. And that's where most people just end up losing faith in it. And then they don't give it away anymore. They just stop before the magic really started to happen. you know? And that's what's like, that's what's scary about it is I see people, it was just like, dude, this is cool, man. You should keep going. And then they realize after a few months that they're not getting the traction that they wanted, or that they're not getting noticed, or that it feels like awkward because, maybe they're not, it seems like it's pointless or something of that nature. And it's just like, no, man, it's just like the vibration's got to get out there and get, and attract those things that are carrying that vibration, man. It'll come. All right. You just have to have faith in it. Just know that what it is that you are doing is being useful and helpful. If you're doing it for an outcome, like I'm doing this because I need to get paid, I guarantee you it won't work. It will not work. Right? Now, if you're doing it and saying, wow, I can't believe I can get paid for this. Let's see how much I can make. That's different. Right? That's different. And so it's better to have that kind of attitude towards it. It was just like, it's just like the money is not important, right? It's the usefulness, the helpful, the, providing part of it that is like without any kind of idea of what it is that's going to come back from it. Putting yourself in a position in which that the money can flow back, right? Putting these videos out regularly on a YouTube channel, knowing I wasn't going to get paid for it, as if I was getting paid for it, eventually turned into something that I got paid for. When I first started getting paid for it, it was such a small, insignificant amount. It made you wonder why you would even want to do it for this, right? For that kind of money. But I didn't care because I wasn't really doing it for the money. It was cool that the money came. I remember the day that I made $10 on a YouTube video. I was like, oh my gosh. If I did one of these every single day, that's like $300 a month. That's incredible. Like that blew my mind. Then one day I made $300 on a video. Right? Whole world changed. But it took years and years and years of effort with no expectations of any kind of return. Right? That got me here because the universe is going to provide for you if you are providing for the universe. It's just the way it is. And I mean, and sometimes it's just like when it does come back, people don't even realize why or how or the significance of what it is that came from it. Yeah. Like a lot of times people are just like, I never got paid for it. And it was just like, yeah, but look at the connections and the network of people that you have that is benefiting your life. You might have not, your bank account may still be the same, but look how rich you are with the network, right? Like some people don't realize how valuable that is. Like it's worth more than money. Having a strong network of people that you can call up and say, hey man, I got this going on. And they're like, yeah, I'm there. Like to have something like that, way more than money, way more than money. Yeah. Man, I am really just going off today. I'm not giving you guys a chance here. All right, let's cruise it up here at the bottom. How many people were lucky who house hacked and how many of them got screwed? Hey, I got screwed trying to do it traditionally, so what difference does it make? Go for it. That's the only thing I can say. I mean, yeah, you're going to take your chances no matter what. Right? I don't care. There is no safe way of going about it. I tried to go about it the traditional fashion, right? Ended up getting foreclosed on. Took 10 years out of my life. It took forever to recover from it, right? Thinking that I wasn't going to be able to recover from it. It didn't have anything to do with anything about trying to find a different strategy for getting into a house that was different from anything else. I was going the traditional fashion. Failed miserably. So what difference does it make? Go for it, right? I mean, what can I say? I failed. I failed at it. Maybe that's something that people need to do. Like maybe failing at it is something that you need to do in order to get a house. That's what happened to me. Like I needed to fail in order to get a house later on in life. If I had kept that house back in the day, who knows where I'd be? Maybe I'd be miserably poor right now and even more broke because, of some other reason. Who knows? Maybe I'd be 5 times richer. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have started a YouTube channel, right? Really, it was the foreclosure that got me even looking into economics and wondering what the hell happened. Right? So that was the benefit that I got from the most impactful, traumatic, devastating thing that could have possibly happened to me financially was one of the most rewarding outcomes that could have possibly come from it. It's weird. That happens too. Like it's, like some people were like, man, you don't understand the trauma that I went through. And I'm like, yeah, but you may not realize that the trauma that you went through is the reason why you're being rewarded today. Yeah. All right. If you're not failing, that means you are not trying. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. You know, and that's the thing that like I found is that I failed at everything that I got good at. Like there was nothing that I was naturally good at all, ever. Yeah. Except for maybe storytelling. People always told me that I could tell stories fun. Like people like listening to me tell stories. Other than that, like I don't know of any kind of like anything that I was ever good at naturally. Like everything I had to practice, everything I had to do over and over and over again, knowing that I would eventually get better at it. And talk about frustrating for things like reading. Like I read all through school into high school. It sucked. I could not, my reading retention was terrible. No matter how much I practiced it, I could not do it. Right? Like it was something that I could just not do. And it was just, oh, it was so frustrating for me. And then as years went by and then the internet started coming out, and, you know, like, because literally when I graduated high school in 95, you know, webs like the World Wide Web had just found its, you know, its initiations into the common person. And, you know, and from there is really, I guess it was probably YouTube that did it. Like, you know, being able to listen to people do lectures and stuff like that is really where I was able to start really learning in a fashion in which that I felt was appropriate to me. Like I could go and pursue the information in the way that I needed to learn it. Right. And now I can like, you know, I mean, hell, I dove deep into monetary policy and economics so deep that now I have this YouTube channel. I mean, you think about it. Like you go back and talk to any of my high school teachers and stuff like that, which I know a lot of them now, and they're all real proud of me and stuff like that. They like compliment me all the time. And I was always a fun, you know, guy to be around and hang out with and stuff. But my grades were just terrible, right? I mean, I was just absolutely horrible. Nobody would have ever anticipated when I was in high school, graduating high school or anything, that I would have a YouTube channel talking about economics where I would actually go and travel and be on stage and giving my opinion and stuff like that. Nope. That was not in the realms of possibilities when I graduated high school. But here it is, right? And it's really because of the way that we can learn now any way we want and learn whatever we want. People say follow your passion. Generally, it's because most people don't have motivation to do something without passion. Also, thanks for the content. Yeah, absolutely, Austin. I mean, I totally agree with that. No, most people don't want, and thank you for the for the thinking of the content too, because I really appreciate you guys being here. You guys, you have no idea how much. But I agree, right? Is that most people, it's difficult to find motivation in something that you don't like, right? Like it's just, in fact, you're almost unmotivated when it's something that you don't like. So if it's something that you really enjoy, something that you found that you're good at, right? When you're good at something, generally you enjoy it. And it's funny how some people become so good at something, they're like, man, I really enjoy this and I just like would love to make a living at this. I know a guy, okay, here's an example. I know a guy who used to play for the Seattle Symphony up there, whatever, the big symphony up there. Anyway, he played violin, right? And he doesn't like it anymore. Like he doesn't like playing violin. He did it for so long, for his entire life, teaching, doing the concerts, teaching, and doing all the other stuff. He has no drive for it, and he has no love for it. Right? And that's sad. Somebody who has the talent, the capability of producing this wonderful sound out of this, you know, out of this instrument doesn't want to do it. That's like, you know, he contributed all that he wanted to the world with it, and he contributed so much, way more than anybody would ever could ever ask him to do. Now he doesn't want to do it anymore. That's sad, right? Like, I can't imagine myself being in a position in which that I was just got to the point where it was just like, I hate doing YouTube. I hate talking these videos. I hate, you know, I hate reading through the comments. Like I cannot feel myself saying that. Like even just saying it out right now kind of makes me angered, you know? Like it hurts to feel that and to think that this was what happened to this dude, you know? So yeah, following your passion, make sure that you are like you're not doing it because you have to. You're doing it because you truly want to. right? And that's why I do this channel. It's why I gave up doing the whole sponsorship thing. I could have been done. Like, I could have had my money. People were like, how come you don't have so much more in your life? And I'm like, I could have. I really could have. I could have had the $1 million, right? Or whatever, the so-called $1 million millionaire thing position or whatever. I could have had it. I mean, I could probably go for it right now and acquire it. But it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good, and it doesn't, and like it, I don't feel like it's me. It doesn't feel like this is what I'm doing with the channel. I don't want to do that, right? And so doing this and how I'm doing this, I mean, out here for an hour and 20 minutes on a live stream, if this feels right, this feels good, and this feels like it's appropriate to what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. Going for the money doesn't feel necessarily right. Like, I go for the money, I put myself in the position in which that the money can flow to me, but I don't pursue it that much, and even like the idea of getting a book out, like, I want to get the book out so I can have something to sell, but I don't want to have something to sell. I want a really good book. That's it. And people are like, man, just get it out there, right? Get it out there, and then you can always work on it and make it better or something like that. And it's like, man, I don't want to just get it out there. I want it to be good, right? Because that's what I want to do, is provide good to the universe, And if it makes money or not, that part isn't important to me. I mean, I hope it makes money. I would love for it to provide for my entire family so I'll never have to worry again. That would be awesome. But, my expectations of that are not there, All right. He has 1 million speeding tickets. Good old Benny. All right, it's definitely worldwide. Know your customer. Dollar bills are also $1 per gram. Yeah, they are. You can weigh money. In fact, people do. Instead of counting it, they weigh it. All right, I know someone who served 2 months for 17 speeding tickets here. Money laundering? Laundering. These tickets in commerce are really unknown. Awesome. I have 3 failure to stops. Not driving after 26 years though. Is stoicism within economics similar to just keeping emotions tamed? Being honest. Is stoicism within economics similar to keeping emotions tamed? I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't think those two really correlate. Like, people can be emotional and not emotional and still perform the same within the economy, within their own economies. So, I think, like, I think just being an individual, to understand, like, to be emotionally aware of yourself, right? To know when you're getting lit up and excited and trying to thrown off frame, right? Here's one of the things, like, to be cool in any situation, to be able to handle any situation that you're in. And when you're unaware of the future, when you're uncertain of the future, then you have high anxiety because of that, right? If you're pissed off about the past, you're depressed. So if you let go of the past and you let go of the future, then you don't have depression and anxiety anymore, right? But you have to learn to let go of these things, which means that you have to not think about them in a fashion of which of this happened to me, or this is the problem with the future, or something. That you have to let go of those kind of ideas. And when it comes, like, I'm sorry, where I kind of forgot where I was going with this, but when it comes for me, or when I get to thinking about that, like, here's for example, the very first time that I went up on stage in Houston a couple of years ago for the Rebel Capitalists, it was in front of 800 people or plus, and I had never been on stage in front of that kind of group of people ever. Like, that was the first time that I had ever done anything like this. I had done a play, right, which is different. You got rehearsed lines, and you're kind of in this, zone of dealing with other actors and stuff like that, which was, it was pretty exciting. It was a bit difficult, but I had, worked on it for months before it had taken place. I did one show, it was a lot of fun. Bingo and stuff, being up in front of an audience, 50 people every weekend. But when you're up in front of 800 plus people who have paid $800 to get into an event, and you're speaking after Robert Kiyosaki, who had been up on stage for the last hour screaming, like just cheering it up, and had the whole crowd just lit up and had their adrenaline that, super elevated at 8 o'clock in the morning. Right? And I get up on stage and I go black. Like I can't think of, I don't remember being there. I literally like lost consciousness. Like I don't even remember saying anything. I don't remember being up there, right? I do remember kind of talking, and I do remember like the crowd laughing, and kind of like I just remember thinking, okay, they're engaged. That you got them, right? Just keep telling, just keep talking. Right? The last time I went up, last month, right, over in Orlando, we get up on stage at the Rebel Capitalist. I'm up there. I am very well aware. Like, I see every single face out there. I am not blacked out. I am very conscious. I know exactly what's happening there. And I can't see my screen. I cannot see the screen. I got my computer. I got this old computer right here, right? I got this up there on stage. I got all my speeches and notes and highlightations and everything that I got, ready to do this presentation thing. I can't see the screen. Now and I'm like, oh shit, what do I do? I can't do this. Like, I'm in the middle of it, and I should be panicking, and I'm not. I'm laughing at myself. All right. And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, it's like, bro, you better figure out something pretty quick here, man, because you can't do this without some glasses or something in order to be able to read this screen, right? And I was trying to figure out how to zoom it out and, try to, figure out where it was, because each one of these things would have to be like, I'd have to figure out where it was because I had them all like kind of on different windows. And some guy out of the audience says, hey, man, you want to borrow my glasses? And I'm like, yes, I do, man. And so just staying cool the whole time, like just knowing, like, it's just like, don't lose it. Don't panic. Don't freak out. Guy gave me the glasses, put it on, did the presentation. Nobody said it. Nobody cared that I couldn't read the screen there for a minute. Nobody cared. Like literally nobody cared. It was like, uh-oh. Somebody get this dude some glasses so he can do his presentation. That's the only thing they cared about. They didn't care that I was screwing up. They didn't care about any of that stuff. They didn't care that I was nervous. They didn't care about any of that. Was everything that I cared about. Right? The only thing they cared about was what you got to say, man. Right? We're all here waiting for you. What do you got to say? We want to hear it, right? We don't care about you not having any glasses. We don't care about you being nervous. We don't care about any of that stuff. That's all things that you care about, right? And then I did the presentation. It was awesome. Like it was really good. I think the presentation in Houston was funner because I was talking about lumber and it was really blowing people's mind, as far as like the lumber industry. But I think doing the 4 economic theories and the credible threat theory was very informative and people really enjoyed it. They came up, shook my hand, said I did a great presentation, was really cool, and yeah, like the only, I mean, I could give it like some other kind of meaning, like, hey, I screwed up there at the Rebel Capitalist by not having my glasses there and not being able to read the computer and all this other stuff. I would have been the only one giving it that meaning. Nobody else cared. Not a single person. If, you know. Material things come and go. Why spend your time in life only on pursuing things that you will leave behind? To greedy folks, focus on leaving a legacy of good deeds and even if it means becoming poor at the end. I can't find the 11 button on my phone. Huh. Well, there is a huge prostitution ring going on Twitch. Yeah. Calm is superpower that I struggle with daily. Yeah, and that's something that I had something that I struggled with as well is that I've always been kind of like the entertainer, like the actor, the joke teller, the clown kind of thing, and it's because I like making people laugh, right? I love the entertainment of it. Like if I could tell a joke that really gets the whole room lit up, man, I just love that feeling. And so if I can entertain, I feel like I'm in my zone. I feel like Maybe that's how I get my validation. I just don't even realize it. Maybe that's from childhood trauma issues. I just don't get it. But anyway, it turns out to be a superpower of mine when I end up being in a room that I can just take presence and take attention and just be able to speak to the entire room in a very, calm and, inviting manner that everybody is just like, seems to feel comfortable with. That's kind of what I go with. Well, what ends up being is that I end up elevating my energy a lot when certain things happen. Like, I'm going to go tell a joke, like even at work, something comes up and I find something humorous. All of a sudden I find myself like getting really like animated and moving, and, I'm talking louder and, cussing more or something of that nature. And I realized, man, you didn't stay chill. Like you didn't, just be cool within frame. Like you can still get excited, you can, still do the things, but like I have a tendency to get like over dramatized, inside of some of the things that I do to try and enhance like the joke or the story or something of that nature. And I find that now that I'm realizing, becoming aware of that, pulling my frame back in together to try and stay a little bit more consistent in the way that I'm presenting myself, especially when it's storytelling and jokes. I can still tell funny stories and jokes, but to not get so like lit up about it, so to speak, to not put that much energy into it, but just kind of focus in on what it is that I'm trying to say or communicate out there. All right, I'm sorry I made you read my stupid comment. I don't know about that. I don't think any comments are really stupid. Many sex workers argue that they went into their line of work not out of desperation, but because for some people it can pay well, offers flexible hours, and they enjoy it. Well, Philosopher's Stone, that's very, very, like, are you sure it isn't because they really wanted to, like, provide a really decent service to society? I mean, think about all the lonely men out there who could get their, get off. I just, I mean, I really think that this is a passion to provide for the universe, right? I mean, what's going on here? I think about that. It was just like, you can make money off a lot of things, man, and that happens to be one of them. And you can do it in a lot of ways. I'm not one to judge what it is that somebody finds entertaining. I'm not, whatever, it's just like some people don't find me entertaining, and I will hope that some people do, right? But I understand that not everybody's going to find me entertaining. So therefore, I can't expect that I'm going to find what somebody else finds entertaining. Like I can't expect that out of everything that's out there. But I think about, like, when you have something of value, right? When you are trading something of value for another something, for some sort of effort, right? Somebody put effort into earn some money, right? That's effort. That money represents effort, and you have a value, right? We're going to trade this. Everything that happens within that industry is perceived value, right? There is no real value from it. I mean, there might be a physical connection that somebody might like enjoy, so there might be some pleasuring value out of it, but there's no real value, right? I mean, the only value that sort of thing ever has is the generation of more life. That's the only value. Everything else is a perceived value from it. And there is so much money to be made in that perceived value. It's endless. And seems to destroy what it is that people feel is value in their real life. Like, I think about little girls who find it quite appealing to turn 18 and put themselves out there on the internet in such atrocious ways and say, look at all the money that I have. It's just like, well, you better earn that and keep it, because that value that you're sharing is limited and it's only perceived value. It's not real value. Now, because it's rewarded with real value, somebody's effort comes in the form of money, the mistaking of what it is that is being provided for it appears to be real. But it's not. It's perceived and it's fake. It's not real value. And that's the problem with the attempt to try and provide something useful to the universe, and you see somebody being rewarded from the universe in such ways. And you're thinking, well, I don't put out such horrible, I put out something that's real, right? I put out something that's useful. I put out something that is entertaining in a way that can be taken for something that can be used into the future, that is not just like some kind of visionary concept of like what could be like an experience or something, right? But something that you could take with your life that actually changes your life and for the better, right? Putting that kind of thing out there should be rewarded. But then you look over and you see this thing getting rewarded and you're thinking, man, that's how this works? That's how this works? Yeah, it's kind of how it works. Yeah, it's kind of how it works. But that perceived value is limited, right? And it only lasts for a short amount of time. And it's unfortunate for most individuals who are engaging in this, not realizing that it's perceived value, take it in for real value and believing this is what the universe is providing for them. It's not. It's limited. And it eventually comes to an end. So, yeah. I'm wondering how AI affects your long-term outlook. You know, people have asked me about AI all the time, right? They say, man, you know, what's going to happen? Everybody's going to lose their job. They're going to all be poor. And I don't see it that way. Like, I just don't see it that way at all. Like, what I see AI doing is freeing up the people from doing their common, everyday, mundane jobs that they shouldn't be doing. It frees them up from doing that and gives them the ability to go out there and pursue the things that they really should be doing in their life, and pursuing the passions and, you know, enjoyments of what it is that, you know, really fulfills them. That's what I think is going to happen. And most people look at it as some kind of like, you know, oh man, they're going to take your job away from you. And I was like, maybe they should. Maybe you shouldn't have that. Maybe the universe is trying to take your job from you so that you can go off and pursue the things that you really should be doing with your life. You know, you think about it, if AI is going to come in and take your job away, well, then AI may make your job and the service that you're providing so cheap that you don't have to worry about paying for it anymore or that much for it. So you don't need a job to pay for it. All right? Maybe you won't need to work that much because AI is taking care of all the problems. All you have to do is just go and enjoy yourself for the passions that you really should. Or in the passions you should. OnlyFans was probably a government psyop. I don't know. Yeah. Real estate is a global problem and tied to the banking crisis. Okay, I mean, I would believe that, but like Cantillon describes it, right? So, I mean, he wasn't talking about banking issues. He was talking about the expansion of money and that there's no better sign of the abundance of money being in the system than the high prices that the property owners are charging for the lease and rents. Like he describes it in here. Let me see if I can find it. It's like, I think it's, what is it, chapter 8? I think it's in chapter 8. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Because, I mean, it's, and this is the thing. Like, you know, we can reinvent the wheel as many times as we want, right? And say, hey, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. And then Cantillon describes it as saying, hey, you know, when you have a whole crap load of money that comes into the system, what you're going to end up finding is that there's going to be a separation between the rich and the poor. It's going to continue to the point that there's going to be ever-increasing amounts of domestic manufacturing that is leaving the state, while ever-increasing amounts of foreign production continue to pour in. I mean, does this sound familiar? This is something that Cantillon was describing back in the day, so there's no reason to think that this is like anything different that's happening today that we should be blaming on anything other than what it is. It's the way the money flows through the system. I'm sorry, I can't remember where that is in here in this book. I should probably find it and highlight it next time. But it's just the way it is. Like, you know, I mean, we can blame it on the banking system. Yeah, they exacerbated the problem, but they're just part of it. Like, it's understanding that the problem occurs because of the way that the new money comes in. And it's not just the way that it comes in from like the banking system, from the issuance of credit, which is a problem, right? But it was the way that the money came into the system that was going to cause our entire economy to collapse back in like the 70s, or maybe even earlier than that, if it wasn't from the coordinated effort of the banking system to try and maintain the flow of money going through the United States economy in the way it is with the U.S. Treasury issuance. Like, understanding it for what it really is. It's not blame, right? You can't blame. You can. I mean, you can. You can't. There's plenty of blame to go around, and I try not to dismiss anything that anybody says, because they're very accurate and it's logical. Everything that most people are saying, it's just like, well, are you taking into consideration that this is going on? Yes, I am, right? And that is, again, the symptom of the bigger problem, which is the fact that the gold standard had been severed and we should have fallen into collapse and poverty, or collapsed into poverty and misery, but they didn't do that. They kept the system going. Everybody went on the Fiat standard, and the United States became the world issuer of a safe and liquid asset of the U.S. Treasuries. And then now the demand for that safe and liquid asset is creating a situation in which that we can no longer expand the money supply without driving the United States into a horrible debt crisis, which we are already facing. It's just like, you know, what do you want to do? Make it worse? Okay. Like, I mean, let's continue on with the system. It'll get worse, you know? And the separation will get worse, and the prices of homes will get worse, and, you know, people will be blaming it all on, again, on the politicians out there, but it really wasn't them. They're just reacting to this whole situation. What chapter is that in, guys? I can't remember. It's chapter 6? It's good. It's like, you know, I mean, reading this thing is like, oh, well, here we go. A good spot anyway. All right. Let's read this part from the book, right? Because think about it. If you can recognize, if it seems familiar to recent times, it's because this is the way it works. When the abundance of money from the mines has diminished, right? So when they turn the new money printer off, right? The number of inhabitants in the state accustomed those who remain to excessive expenditures, everybody has a high standard of living, raised the prices of farm products and the wages for labor to high levels, right? Everybody's making this money, they can't, making this higher wages, right, from the higher standard of living, right? For the labor to the high levels, and ruined the manufacturers of the state by the purchasing of foreign products by property owners and the mine workers. So the people who had first access to the money, the property owners, right? The people who are collecting rent. The mine workers, in a sense, are the central bankers, right? Because we don't really produce money through the efforts of mining, right? We produce money through the efforts of expansion of credit. So if you consider the property owners and the central bankers, the people who are producing the new money or getting the new money in, and who have access to that new money, and the people who have access to that credit, what are they doing with it, right? They ruin the manufacturers of the state by the purchasing of foreign products. I mean, this is described hundreds of years ago. Does this sound like what happened here in the United States over the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s? All right. The money produced by the mines, by the Treasury, by the government, by the Fed, whoever you want to mentally put that mine as, right? The money produced by the mines will necessarily go abroad. Flies over, right? Triffin's dilemma. Think about this. Triffin's dilemma is, how does the United States, as a world reserve currency, get that money out there to the rest of the world, right? Well, you can give it to them, right? Or you can buy their stuff. You buy their stuff, you export dollars. Think about what's happening there. All the money produced by the mines will necessarily go abroad, right? To pay for the imports, to pay for all this production coming in. This will gradually impoverish the state, right? You see all the homeless people running around. It'll gradually impoverish the state and make it, in a way, dependent on the foreigners to whom it is obligated to send money every year as it is extracted from the mines. Think about it. If we were not to produce this debt to send off to foreigners, then their production, their real production, wouldn't flow back to us, and our standard of living would diminish. He explains it right there, right? Let me read it again. This will gradually impoverish the state, right? This new money coming in and sending money abroad will gradually impoverish the state and make it, in a way, dependent on the foreigners to whom it is obligated to send money every year, and every year as it is extracted from the mine. So in this case, they have to send that money overseas every year as it is extracted from the U.S. Treasury debt and Federal Reserve. The great circulation of money, which was widespread in the beginning, ceases. Right? As soon as that new money turns off, it ceases. Poverty and misery follow. And the exploitation of the mines, the exploitation of these banking systems, appears to only be advantageous to those who are employed in them, those who have first access or closest access to that money, all the bankers themselves, all the people who are playing in the real estate game, all the corporations, right? Who are employed to them, and the foreigners who profit thereby. All the money goes over there. The domestic manufacturers and everybody else suffers the consequences of this. Go ahead and blame it on your politician. Go ahead. Like, blame it on all the politics, blame it on all the law, all that stuff. Blame it on everything. But Cantillon is describing it right here. So you blame it on what you want. I know the reasonings that it's taken place. Now, yeah, it looks a lot different today because we have central banks and fiat currency, and he's talking about gold and silver mines. But the economic forces that he is describing that is creating the problems of the separation between the rich and the poor, and the depletion of domestic manufacturing and the increase of foreign production is described from an economic force that cannot change, that will not change. Now, we can overlay it with all kinds of obscurities from politics, but it doesn't change this fact that is happening, right? And so I can sit back with confidence and say, no, it's not politics that is doing this. Yes, they influence it, they dramatically enhance it, they can do all things that make it look as if they are the ones. They're not, right? They are merely reacting to an economic force that is underlying, that nobody knows about, or very few people really recognize. Weed is the shiz, at least in neither fent, crack, or chud light. Yeah, I can go for that. Like, I'm, like, I mean, as far as like all the intoxicants that could possibly be out there, weed is pretty mellow. Yeah, like alcohol is horrible. Alcohol is horrible. Like, a lot of people are like, well, no, weed and alcohol, they're kind of like the same thing. And it was like, not even close. Not even close. They're not even close to being the same thing. That's like, it is the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard, is to compare those two together, right? And here's the thing. I don't care how much you consume alcohol. Like, you could be a completely saturated drunk. You can still get drunk. Like, you can still consume enough alcohol that you can get drunk, right? Now, if you are a hardcore cannabis user, and I mean like daily user, all day long kind of daily user, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't do the same. It does affect you. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't have any kind of impact on you. It does, right? But not in the same sense as the very first time you do it, or to the point that you can get to the completely inebriated stage. Like, I watched my buddy do 32 bong hits in a row. Like, I mean, literally, he smoked like a half an ounce of weed right in front of me, and he didn't look much different from the second or third bong hit to the last one that he took. Right? I mean, he got stoned, but it wasn't like, it didn't look any different. Like, from about the second or third one to the last one, it wasn't doing anything to him after a while. Right? And I hear, and I've experienced that myself, that it's just, after a while, it just doesn't have the same impact. Like, you build up a tolerance to it, and you don't even really get stoned anymore. You feel the same, only different. Right? But that's not the same with alcohol. Alcohol, man, you can go ahead and sit down there at that bar and get lit up, and to the point that you just like you're just gone, right? You know, it's not the same. It's not the same with weed. All right. I puff every day, all day, perfectly healthy. 500 milligrams, tolerance. Yep. Man, you getting drunk. I don't get drunk. Alcohol in controlled amounts isn't bad, but food is not needing it. Yeah. All right. The policy impacts violence and prostitution increase. Weed helped me stop partying. I just have an eating problem now. Nobody smokes a doobie and says, I feel like robbing a bank, I think robbing a bank right now. No, no, that doesn't happen. You know, and it's, so many people have these misunderstandings of what weed does to you as far as like, you know, the effects on people. It's not like, I know so many successful people that like are daily users. It is not the same thing, you know. 4 years sober, good for you. I'm like, I don't know, 8, 9 years sober. I don't know when I actually quit alcohol. Like I don't have a date that I did it, but I know it was around 8 or 9 years ago. It's called tolerance, you know. But see, that's the thing. You can build up a tolerance to alcohol where, like, you know, you drink a 6-pack and you're pretty normal, but you can continue to drink. You sit there and start pounding down those shots of whiskey or whatever, you're gonna get inebriated. Like you know, it's just the way it works. So here's the thing. You can build up a tolerance for alcohol just the same. I know this lady. Here's a story for you. You guys like stories? Here's a story for you. So, about 4 or 5 years ago, we went and picked up this girl who was completely saturated. We're going to take her up to this rehabilitation place up in Portland, and she had been drinking for a while. Like, I mean, she's on a hardcore bender here, and this isn't the first one. And like, basically, the doctors have told her at this point, it was just like, so since you're committing suicide, we're not going to help you out anymore. We're not going to give you the liver transplant, all this other stuff. Essentially, because she wouldn't quit drinking. Right. So if you have quit drinking, you get yourself, you know, sobered up, and you're, you know, serious about it, they'll help you out. But if you're going to drink, they're not going to put a new liver in you. It's just the way it is. Right. And I mean, people just don't seem to understand that, you know, they're like, well, I'll slip up this one time. No, you don't slip up just one time, man. You know, you only have one shot at this. They're going to replace your liver. If you're not serious, they're not serious. And that's what it comes down to. So this chick is saturated, and like the doctors are ultimately done with her, right? And her family's like, you know, they don't know what to do. So we're gonna take this chick up and I don't even know, she's probably late 30s, early 40s. And we're on our way up to Portland, and she's in the back of the Explorer. And she comes to at one point, right? And she asked if she was in medics. Like, she thought she was in an ambulance headed to the hospital or whatever. You know, and I'm thinking like, yeah, because this isn't your first rodeo, right? So, you know, I don't know when she had her last drink, but it was before we picked her up, you know. It's a couple hour ride to Portland, you know. So she had like pretty much walked to the Explorer and passed out in the back seat, and then got out of when we got to the hospital up there, she got out of the Explorer and, you know, said goodbye, and, you know, was on her own, gave hugs or whatever, said thanks, you know. And on her own effort, they walked her into the hospital. We got back in the Explorer and went home. The next day, find out the condition and everything, called up. They said that they did a blood alcohol test on her, and I forget exactly how high it was, but it freaked them out so bad how high the blood alcohol level was that they thought that she should be dying, right? If, like, they were amazed that she was even up and coherent and walking around. but that the level of alcohol that she had in her system meant that she shouldn't even really be alive, right? Like most people would be passed out, dying, at this level, and she's walking around talking. This is the level of saturation this lady had gotten herself to. Like she had consumed so much alcohol so continuously, so long, that the body, her mind, everything was now adapting to the level of alcohol that she had and was trying to function. Right? This is something like she can no longer, like everything she was witnessing and viewing had to have been nothing but dream state. Like, there is no real retaining or understanding of the situation because of the level of alcohol that was in her system. So they sent her to the emergency room to make sure, in case something happened. Like, they're like, man, this chick shouldn't even be alive right now, right? And I think about that, like she drove, like, I don't even know when her last drink was, but then she was like 2 hours so, like, not drinking while we took her up there. And she was able to function around like this. And it was so amazing. I'm like, how is this even occurring right now? 2 weeks later, she was dead. Like, she didn't drink. Like, she didn't drink anymore after that. But it was already over. Like, there was no, it was already done. And that was something, that was something amazing to see. Like, I'm not amazed, like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. That was amazing to see. It's like, I can't believe that the human body could actually do that. To have a level of alcohol so high in the system that the medical professionals thought that she should be dead from the level of alcohol that she had in her system. She was coherent. She could talk. She could walk. She had balance. This is amazing. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I didn't think it could occur like that. Essentially, it can't. Right? Because she was dead. She just didn't even know it yet. Yeah. Anyway. She died from withdrawals? I'm guessing so. Like, I don't think she died from withdrawals as much as I think she was just already, like, she was already done, right? Like, all her organs were cooked. It was just, like, there was no, I mean, I don't know what the exact, I think it was probably something to have to do with something from the liver, some toxic thing from the liver. My friend Jenny essentially did the same thing. Like, I mean, that wasn't the story of Jenny. Jenny did essentially the same thing. That was a different chick, But, yeah. All right. Yeah, it might have been the most terrible thing I've ever seen you write. Oh, wow. Who are you talking about? All right. Usually they give people shrooms or DMT to reset. Very sad story. It was a very sad story. This is, it's easy for me to not drink, when you experience stuff like that. Like the mound of beer cans, that's easy for me. That's just a picture. But that experience of taking that girl up there and having all that, it was like, it was beyond. Like, it was like, I mean, I've heard of things out there, but I'd never actually seen it of that level, you know. It was amazing. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. It was just like, because it wasn't great, not by any means. There was nothing awesome about it, but it was certainly, I didn't think could occur, like the level of alcohol could be in a person to the point of that the medical professionals would think that they were dead, but then be able to function. Like the body was just like fighting through it all. It's amazing, the resilience of the human body and what it can take, and then what it really can't. If doctors made her quit, she may have died from withdrawals. I don't believe that it was withdrawals. I believe that it was because her organs were failing, and I think and if I remember right, that's essentially what it was, right? I don't think it was necessarily from withdrawals. It could have been. I mean, that might have just been the icing on the cake of it, but I think it was already a sealed deal. Like it was already a done deal, and it was just a matter of time. Simon, you have ever heard of the miracle recoveries people have made from psilocybin? Here's the thing, Brody. I do, and I'm not trying to knock it as medicine or anything else like that. Now, I come from Oregon. I come from a particular spot in the Pacific Northwest that has a particular psilocybin that is named for our area, right? It is a super powerful cap. You only need a couple of them to really get toasted off of them. They're called psilocybin. Well, now they're called azarescents. They used to be called psilocybin uh, Astoria oscips, right? So there used to be a particular name for the azarescents that were around here. Now they just go under the blanket name of Azzies, right? Azarescents. And they are a psilocybin mushroom. There's all kinds of them out there, you know. There's psilocybin semilancetus, psilocybin gabinsi, psilocybin, you know, azarescents, psilocybin cyanescence, you know, there's all kinds of these psilocybin type of mushrooms out there. This is where the Liberty caps, the UFO mushrooms, all this other stuff. I know a lot about this particular thing. I used to be a mycologist, a hobbyist, you know, mycologist, hobbyist, because we have the Pacific Northwest is loaded with mushrooms. I found it a hobby to go and identify mushrooms. I was never big into going off to find like magic mushrooms. I mean, yeah, I would stumble across them. We played around with them and stuff like that, but it was never like a big deal to me. I was going after identification of mushrooms, going after the edible mushrooms, gourmet style, the chanterelles, the cauliflowers, the you know, whatever, you know, happened to be, you know, lobster mushrooms, boletes, or whatever was out there. That was what I was going for. But, you know, here's these, you know, psilocybins out there and you come across them, right? So, you know, I pick a few of these azarescents and I tell you, man, they screw you up, right? They get you annihilated. They will mess you up, right? And I didn't microdose, we megadosed, right? That's what we were doing. We were there to try and get high. And I honestly do not any experience that I have ever had. I just it's just from my own experience. I cannot test, you know, about anybody else's experiences with it or anything. It's not medical. There's nothing medical beneficial about that. It messes you up, and to me, it did not create an environment in which that I felt better about. Right? Like I didn't feel that way from it. Other people might experience something totally different. A friend of mine talked about a spiritual experience that she went on. Like she went with a group to have this, you know, particular psilocybin spiritual experience. She said it was one of the greatest things that she had ever done. Uncovered so much stuff about her life and, you know, childhood trauma impacts and, you know, the way she was thinking. And she just dove into all kinds of stuff and really expanded her mind. And she just talks it up big time from it. I didn't get any of that. I didn't get any of that, right? I tripped and it was an experience and I thought a million thoughts at once and it was, you know, it was just another one of those things. But as far as like, you know, hey man, we're going to do some of this to try and help you feel better about yourself, you know, and get your depression, you know, and all that. No thanks, I'll try something else, right? Meditations, I'll go for walks, I will, you know, do whatever, but I do not want to take that stuff for any kind of medical use, you know. That's me personally. So, you know. All right. Brody, thanks again for hitting the membership, man. 6 months now. That's right on. All right. The body can become dependent on the amount she was drinking. Yeah, no, I don't doubt that, you know. And this is the thing, she had quit at one time, not too long before that, right? Like she was like getting ready to go into the surgery. She decided to relapse. This dude Duff from GNR said he drank for 14 years straight and never drank any water. Yeah, I'm sure everything worked out just fine. Everyone smash the like button for Simon. Yes, thank you. Please do. We're at 372 likes. I love it. I am not even asking for likes. You guys are nailing it. We're at 379 people with 372 likes. It's awesome. We're 2 hours into the live stream. It's 10 o'clock in the morning right now. You should film fishing content. You know, Benny, that is a great suggestion, man. I love that. I died from COVID and rose again on the third day. I know of a lady that lived for 96 years or so, and she was smoking every day, eating bacon and eggs. And I've heard of people that quit smoking at doctor's orders and they die soon after. Yeah, the shock to the body can be something else once it becomes accustomed to, a particular substance on a regular basis. I mean, the chances of you making it to 96 being a heavy drinker and smoker is probably pretty limited. Like you can point out cases of it happening and you can say, wow, this is a pretty resilient person, to human to be able to take that kind of punishment and live that long, but it's pretty rare, right? And so for most people, it's probably not going to end up going that way. Uh, as these are extremely powerful, they are. They're like they're intense. It's just like, it's beyond what I think a lot of people would even consider like tripping on mushrooms would be like. Like the azarescents are incredibly powerful, like more powerful than typical magic mushrooms would be. And yeah, I mean, it's weird. Like I don't like talking about drug use and stuff like that, but the mushrooms were a lot of, like, to me, I was really interested in the mycology of it, right? Like that was to me was like, the scientific end of things. It was just like, wow, there's something inside of this that makes you all goofy and messed up and it unlocks certain thoughts and whatever. And so I was interested in that for that sense of it. And so when I found like psilocybin stunsies, which I didn't even know, like I totally stumbled across this particular psilocybin and I didn't even know what it really was when I first found it. I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, because of my understanding of mycology, I can tell that it's a psilocybin. Like, I mean, it at least has all the appearance and characteristics of psilocybin, but it is tiny and really wavy cap, and it has this really short, kind of odd shaped stem to it, and they're small. So, I do the spore print. I check it out. Yeah, sure. It's got the purple brown spore, spore print. That's one of the ways you can identify a psilocybin is by the spore print. They always have the same color, and there's no better way of describing it than saying purple brown. It's not purple. It's not brown. It is a purple brown color, and it is like once you see it, you're like, yep, that's it, purple brown, right? And that's, you do this identification check on the spore print. You do the oxidation test, you pinch it a little bit and see if there's a blue staining that comes from the damaged part of the cap. Sometimes it'll just stain blue, it'll oxidize blue all on its own. You don't have to do anything to it. It'll just kind of have like this blue hue that kind of takes over on it. And you start recognizing it's just like, well, damn, this is definitely psilocybe. I'm a little nervous about trying it. I'm not into it. But my buddy, he's like, oh, dude, And I'm like, dude, I'm like 99% sure it's psilocybe. I just don't know what kind of potency or anything like that. And he was just like, okay, man, I'm doing them. And then he talks about how he tripped out on them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right? These are the experiences. And he said that those dunsies, those little tiny wavy little caps, I only found them one time in my entire life in one little flower bed next to this job site I was working at. And he said those were by far the most powerful mushrooms with visuals and all kinds of stuff that happened from them. It's the stuff that, you pick up and learn. And like, when I think about psilocybin being a medicine, and I'm like, maybe, I don't know. Like, I don't see it though, but I never done anything micro, I mean, I always, portobello mushrooms is the only mushrooms I eat. Yeah, I eat all of them. The portobellos, like I like the mushrooms that grow around here pretty commonly are like the chanterelle. Chanterelles are like they just grow everywhere. It's almost impossible during like the October, November to be walking through the woods and not find chanterelles. Like if you just have any idea of what they look like, they're everywhere. So you can do pretty well picking chanterelles, but then there's like the lobster mushrooms and the boletes and you can find the morels are okay. Summer morels do grow around here, but I think there's other places kind of more inland that they grow more frequently than they do out here on the coast. Um, I came across like a really fun bolete, And you want to see a really odd looking mushroom? Google Zellery bolete, Zellery, Zeller's bolete. Anyway, it is a strange looking mushroom. So it has a red stalk, for one, like red, like apple red stalk. Has this yellow looking pore. Like it doesn't have gills, they have pores. Boletes have pores, not gills. Right? So it has like this spongy looking yellow pore thing on the bottom of it that if you touch it, it will stain blue like the psilocybins. It's not a psilocybin, it's not a magic mushroom or anything. But if you just touch it, it'll like instantly stain blue. And then it has this really dark black velvety cap, right? So the look of the mushroom is saying, I'm not appealing, right? It's just like this really ugly looking red, turns blue, black cap, doesn't, kind of disgusting looking little mushroom. But it's an edible mushroom and it's actually pretty good. Now, the strange thing about it is that when you chop this thing up and you throw it in the frying pan to saute it up, it starts like this slime. It starts like, building up the slime in the pan. Like you could literally take the spatula and pull like this slime off of it. And it's really gross and disgusting. It's like, what the hell is this stuff? But as you cook, the slime cooks away, right? And eventually it's not there anymore. And it's just like all you have is these sauteed mushrooms. Excellent. They are by far one of the better mushrooms that I have ever had as far as the wild species that I have picked. That is definitely on the, upper level of the better tasting ones out there. But as far as like picking it, looking at it, like cooking it, none of it seems appealing at all. But that's one of the things you learn from, going out there and mushroom picking. All right. I'm talking about mushroom picking. That's so much fun. All right. Suck the slime out. Alcoholics are known to get drunk at the worst possible time. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like they don't drink when it's appropriate. They try to get away with drinking when they know it's not appropriate, right? Like they know they're not supposed to be buzzing at the kids' high school baseball game or something like that, but they're, you know. These mushroom terms are harder than medical terms. I think I need a mushroom to stop my head from hurting from these words. Yeah. I mean, you thought that talking about economics was difficult. Try talking about mycology. Oh my goodness. You start getting into, you know, Cantillon and Hypomyces lactiflorum and just like all kinds of these names out there. Mycoglossary. Brody has good question. Oh, what is it? Let me go up there and find it. Where's Brody? Brody. Brody, thank you so much for everything you do, Simon. The economy is the mechanical version of consciousness. What do you think that says about the nature of what money itself is? Well, I mean, that's really where it kind of lends into the idea that the economy is the mechanical version of consciousness, and that really, like, money is the connectiveness that really makes us all one, right? Like, have you ever heard of the idea that there is nobody else, it's just you? Like, you are an internal being living a temporary human existence, right? And that what you are actually feeling is just nothing more than energies. Everything that you visually see is an illusion of the energy that you are feeling, right? And now, this is a really crystal gripping, far off concept, but when you dive into this kind of thought, it really starts to make a lot of sense on why things seem sort of magically happening within the universe. Like, when I think about like my YouTube channel taking off and all the other stuff, right? Well, I think about the energy that I was carrying at the time before that happened and the energy that I was carrying after the time that it happened, right? And now carrying the higher energy and vibration was what got me out there into getting the other things that carry that vibration to come to me, like the invitation to the rebel capitalist, right? As one of just many things. And so when we think about money injected into this energy that we feel, right? This energy that we are experiencing, everything that we do, everything that we attempt to produce or have experience in, whether it's communications or, the actual making of something, like, producing and selling something, all this stuff is interconnected with every single person on the planet, like unknowingly, right? Your energy that's going into that is now being reflected or being connected to all the rest of the other people in this planet who carry energy as well. Because you wouldn't have had the lumber if it wasn't for the effort of somebody else, right? You wouldn't have been able to, transport this on the vehicle if it wasn't for the efforts of all the rest of the people in the world, right? So all of them consciously working to do what it is that they are doing is the reason why you're able to do the things that you're doing. You see how this is connected, right? Now, the only way to really expand this into the world, like, you can isolate it down to just your little village, right? If nobody came into your village and nobody left your village, it would just be you and your little village, right? But now money does something very different, and now it can connect these different villages together, almost to the point that you don't even recognize that there is a separation within the village itself. We are all individually acting on accord to our own efforts and ideas with the energies of everybody else, and that money, that the currency, everything that we are using to trade with is the continuity that makes that happen, right? I'm able to trade my efforts and time to this dude, right? But if he doesn't want my efforts and time, well, then I have the product that I can get his efforts and time, because he doesn't need mine personally, but because I can trade it for this money, I can now interact with this other individual. And that's how the money connects us as conscious beings, right? It's the mechanical form of consciousness. And this is really odd because, like, most people don't think about, like, the rest of the people on the planet and their part in what they had to do in order for you to achieve what it is that you're doing. Most people say, like, no, nobody helped me, but that's not true, right? Like, you had, like, I didn't build this Explorer, I didn't build that phone, and I didn't build YouTube, right? So none of this did I do, right? Except for what it is that I'm doing right now, which is using those other products that other people and their efforts and their thoughts and their ideas had designed and brought to the ability for me to take use of, right? So this is really what it comes down to. It's just like each one of us acting individually and knowing that each and every single person that we are interacting with is the reasons why we are able to do the things that we are doing. It's just like, it's hard to wrap your head around something like that because it's so, like, woo-woo and crystal gripping and kind of thought, but that's really the way it is. It's like, even this plastic bottle right here that had water in it wouldn't have taken place if it wasn't for you and what you're doing. Like, I mean, literally, you, the person who's watching this video right now, if it wasn't for your efforts and what it is, this bottle of water, I might have a bottle of water here, but it wouldn't be this one, right? It would be some other bottle of water with some other label with something else going on with it, because it would be on a completely different parallel if it wasn't for you and what you were doing. Every video I put out has a different parallel. Everybody who watches the video is on a different parallel. If they weren't watching the video, they would be doing something else, which would have them on a different course in life. And this is how we're all interconnected. Every single one of us. Right down to that homeless dude who's down on the street, who can't figure it out, who's stealing stuff and doing drugs and everything else. He is very much the energy that you are carrying, and very much the same energy as the richest dude who's out there. They are all interacting with you the same. Right? All right. You're welcome for the water, Simon. I'm happy to oblige. Yep, you bet, Brody. Thank you very much. And oh, there's one. I needed one with a little bit more water in it. I got diamond eyes, I'm getting lit. All right, then you think of where people put their energy. That's right. And then you think about where people put their energy. And you wonder, like, why it is that this person is able to be so successful at what it is that he's doing, while this other person is suffering the consequences of, bad positioning in society, right? And you think about like what it is that these people are thinking, the energy that they are carrying, what it is that they are putting their motivation towards, and knowing, right, that these two people in the way that they are interacting has something to do with each other. The richest person who has no clue about that homeless dude on the street, and that homeless dude on the street has no idea who this rich person is, but what they are doing independently, not knowing each other, is interacting with each other. They just don't even realize it, right? In some form or another. The population growth has fallen to the lowest point in recorded history, which is 0.87. There were more births in medieval times than today. Yeah. You know who explains that? Right here, Cantillon. Cantillon explains that. Let me show you. See, this is what I love about Cantillon's essay. This is what I love about learning about history and all the other stuff, is that if you can find examples of it from hundreds of years ago, then you know that you don't have to reinvent the wheel on why it's taken place. You can know the reasonings behind it. Once you understand the reasonings behind it, then it makes a lot more sense to why it is that these politicians are acting and being the way that they are, is because they're literally reacting to the situations that are happening within these economic forces. Let me see if I can find this one here. It's a good one too. It's the increase and decrease of the populations of the people in the state, and the inequality circulation. I should read that one, but let me see if I can find it here real quick, because it's such a good. Maybe I'm in the wrong spot here. It was such a good spot because they talk about why it is that populations are so much more prevalent in a poorer society than they are in a rich society. All right. Where is it? The increase. Let's see. Interest in the cause of increase and decrease of money in the state. Why am I not finding it? Part 2, market circulation, further reflections on the inequality of the circulation. Same product further increases. Man, I don't know why maybe I'm just tired, and I forget what chapter it was in that he talks about it. Anyway, I guess I could just talk about how he describes it. Basically, what he is saying is that poor populations. There we go. Okay, the increase of population can be carried furthest. Thank you for sticking with me, guys. I appreciate it. You know, I'm the uneducated economist. Thanks for being here. All right, the increase of population can be carried furthest in the countries where the people are content to live the most poorly. Not the high standard of living, which would intuitively make sense that if you have a high standard of living, more likely you're going to have the money to raise a child, but that's not the case, right? It is very different from that. The increase of population can be carried furthest in the countries where the people are content to live the most poorly and consume the least production of the soil. So if they are not participating in buying stuff, right? They're basically poor, poverty-stricken people. They're going to have the most population growth. In countries where all peasants and laborers are accustomed to eating meat, drink wine, beer, etc., not many inhabitants can be supported. So he describes it way back in the day, that if you have a higher standard of living, your population is going to decrease. If you have a low standard of living, you're going to have a lot of people. That's all there is to it, right? And you can see plenty of examples of that today. Just look at any poverty-stricken nation and look at the out-of-control population, the growth. Look at anyone that's civilized, anyone that has a higher standard of living. They decrease their population growth every time. Like, you could say it's different. You can come up with birth control. You can come up with education. You can come up with all these excuses and reasons. They're all very logical and make sense. But the problem with it is that if Cantillon can describe it from an economic force described hundreds of years ago, then you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? And that's really what it is that most people want to find reason for it, and they find it in political, social, science, whatever. They got all this stuff that they want to blame it in. But yet Cantillon just says, well, if you're poor, you'll have babies. If you're rich, you won't. That's simple, right? Simply explained. Alrighty, guys, I'm going to call it quits here in about 5 minutes. I'm down to 8% on my phone. We're about 2.5 hours into this video. Anyways, with 415 likes, 378 people watching, you guys nailed that like button. I appreciate it so much. And what do we got here? I'm just going to read a few more comments. Drinking cow's milk is insane. Yeah, I hear you, Brody, but I love ice cream. Hey, Simon, if the population goes down, shouldn't that make housing values go down as well? Yeah, but is population going down? I don't think so. Like, population is stagnated. For an adult human being, yeah. Street shattering, anyone? Street shatting? Oh. Alright, why are people okay to live poorly? I don't know if they are okay to live poorly. Can I create a clip channel of your live streams? I mean, I don't. Here's something funny that I find about my content is that I don't copyright. I don't, I don't like request that nobody does anything with it. I like the only thing that I like question on it is monetizing anything. Like, I mean, my information that I put out there, I feel is like, I mean, it's like, it's information. I don't really expect it to be like, retained or anything else like that. Like, but as far as making money with the content that I have produced, I mean, I probably wouldn't appreciate that one as much, you know. So, but if you like, I mean, if somebody's like, clipping and keeping for their own, references and their own sharing or whatever, like I don't have any problem with people sharing my information or whatever like that. Like, I just, I give it away. Like, I just, like, it's all for free out there on YouTube. It's just monetizing the content yourself. That would be like, that would be irritating to me, because it was like, man, that's what I'm trying to do here. This is why I'm giving it away. It's not for somebody else to go and make money with. It's for me to make money with, right? If you want to use the information itself, to position yourself better, then that's one thing. But anyway. If people were inherently good, then there'd be more demand for them, just saying. Okay. As long as they put their rake on in and not just replaying. All right. Maybe poor parents don't instill a good work ethic in their children. I don't think that's it. The entire world legitimately runs on a fractional reserve. Yeah, that's very true. You're already known to many children. It's how the Rothschilds did it. A loan shark's rate is 300% 1 year. Cow's milk is really the cow's blood. If I want to comment on your videos, is fine, fair use, but if I just replay, no. Any money made republishing Simon's content should be returned to the super chats. Alrighty, guys. I'm going to call it quits on this one. My phone just kind of went black on me. Let me know that my battery's about ready to die, but I really appreciate everybody being here. I left a link down in the description to some articles talking about the homeless condition, although we didn't really talk too much about the homeless condition, just at the very beginning of the video. I think some of the things that we do cover are very helpful in understanding what's going on within the economy, and I think this book right here is a read for anybody who is really trying to figure out macroeconomics. Cantillon's essay on economic theory has so much insight into the economic forces that are underlying a lot of the issues that we are facing today, but most people don't recognize them because they don't see it for what it really is, and that is an economic force, much like gravity. So There's a link down in the description to the Amazon affiliate link where you can purchase this book. I get a little commission off of it, but you don't have to buy the book off of Amazon. You can go get the essay for free at the Mises Institute. So just type in Cantillon essay on Cantillon, right? Cantillon essay on economic theory. You can go and get it for free at the Mises Institute and not have to purchase it from Amazon. However, if you do happen to click on the Amazon affiliate link, go put anything you want from Amazon into that cart. Anything that you put into your cart from clicking on that link is going to then give me a commission on all those purchases that you do. So go and buy anything you want from Amazon. Just click on that Amazon affiliate link first, and I'll get a little commission off of all those purchases. Thank you, everybody, for being here. What is it, about 10 o'clock Sunday morning? Had a great talk and time. Appreciate everybody. I can't see how many people we have, but we got quite a few super chats out of it. Over 300 people watching with over 440 likes, I believe. So this is the way we do it. Thank you so much for being here. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.